Okay, so slide 2. Our main objective is to answer the question that follows. So, the average age of Americans who have children has been rising over past decades. Menstruation begins earlier, and young adults can remain dependent on insurance until age 26. Have such changes altered how we define contemporary adolescence? My stance is yes. These things have changed and altered how we define contemporary adolescence. So on slide 3, of course, we define what adolescence is, and the World Health Organization defines it as this transitional and development period between childhood and adulthood. And it specifically states that it would be between the ages of 10 and 19, of course, with some variation. But another interesting factor is that they also define young people as being between the ages of 10 and 24, and I would like to come back to that statistic later on. So on slide 4, we see that puberty and menarche are starting earlier for respectively both boys and girls. So for example, at the turn of the 20th century, the average age for the American girl to get her period was 16 or 17, but now it's around 12 to 13, according to Vital Record at EDU. And for boys, the start of puberty, before it was 11, but now it's about 10 or younger. So we see the floor of puberty continually and gradually decreasing over time. So where the World Health Organization defined it as being, 10 on average, it can decrease even more, and it is decreasing even more. So we have to already start to include this younger demographic of people becoming adolescents at an alarmingly young age. And now we look towards the ceiling at late adolescence and early adulthood. And I feel like this is kind of an area where we generally start to define people more as young adults rather than adolescents. So it's an interesting concept that we kind of already at 18, college age, start to think of them as adults. But really, it can also be categorized as late adolescence. So this is 18 to 24, and this is more of a period of settling into both your physical self, your sexuality, and even your sense of individuality and personality. Your brain is still developing during this period as well, so it's not so much extreme change like normal adolescence, but it is still gradual change and settling as a person. So going back to the statistic of young people being 10 to 24, realistically, you could also define adolescence as a whole as being from 10 to 24. And with our previous statistic on slide 4, we could even start to define that as maybe even 9 or 8, depending on the study data, and 24 or possibly 26, depending on the age of dependency being 26 now. So now we get into slide 6 with some more looking at the younger, older parents, where only 50% of parents now are millennials, defined as people being born from 1981 to 1994. So this is kind of a combination of a lot of different factors, such as a lot of younger people are now choosing to remain single, or at least choosing not to become parents later because of a lot of different financial and societal factors, such as college debt. For example, college debt in 2018, the average college debt was $29,000. So a lot of people are choosing rather to remain financially stable and sort through these different problems rather than to accept a family with more financial burden and potentially have this double factor of raising a child or children, having a spouse, and trying to absolve your debt. So something that helps this is the age of dependency being 26 now. So this gives young people more of a chance to become financially stable and maybe work a job that's not so great, but maybe has greater pay at the expense of benefits, because now they can still get their parents' benefits till the age of 26. So therefore, they can have this time to perhaps work on this college debt if they have some, or whatever financial like goal or hurdle they choose. That way, they can become financially stable and independent at the same time. Then by 26, they can look for a job with benefits or something else financially stable they can move towards, instead of being thrown out into this world with a massive chain around their ankle. So I think that both with menarche and puberty starting lower, maybe lowering the age of contemporary adolescence to 9 or even 8, depending on whatever. And since we have this new information of 26 being the age of like dependency, we should maybe stretch the age of young people of 10 to 24, maybe even from 9 to 26. And this leads into my final point of slide 7, letting them be kids. And this is kind of how our society has been going over the past couple years, and this is kind of given with the rise of like social media and a lot of interconnectedness. I think there's more acceptance of ideas, like less shame and longer time for people to mature. And there's a general kind of camaraderie between a lot of people kind of like our generation and a lot of younger people. Like for instance, kind of like this universal like of like cartoons and different things we shared as children, kind of like SpongeBob, how a lot of like SpongeBob like memes and stuff have become so popular. Like perhaps older people might look down on this as being childish or something along that vein, but instead we choose to hang on to these things that that we felt were great as, you know, kids, and then we carried through our adolescence, and even now as young adults or adults, we still like to look back on and we cherish. So I think that there's, even now, we like to read. I personally even find a lot of these adolescent readings that we do to be great and kind of very fun to read, actually. So I think that there's this acceptance of being able to enjoy adolescent like literature and adolescent media more, even as like a young adult or a late adolescent. So in conclusion, yes, I think that the 3 factors of early puberty, like younger, older adults or parents having kids later in life, and the age of dependency being 26, they have all influenced how we define contemporary adolescence.